So we're going to give a warm welcome to Father Marcel. Father Marcel is a PhD student in the theology department at Boston College, specializing in systematic theology. He also is a graduate assistant to Father Michael Himes, another beloved Agape Latte speaker. Father Marcel was born in Rwango, Rwanda, and raised in a Catholic family. In his ministry, he has counseled prisoners, victims of abuse, and AIDS patients. He has also found passion in supporting the education of young and impoverished girls in Africa, operating under the maxim that if you educate a girl, you educate the whole village. Father Marcel has received degrees in philosophy, theology, and management from the University of Zimbabwe and the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. In his spare time, Father Marcel loves to travel. He's been to over 9 states, and they've ranged from all over the East Coast to California. You can often spot Father Marcel around campus, giving the candlelight masses at St. Joe's on Upper, or occasionally the 10:15 Mass in the Heights Room on Sundays. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Father Marcel.
So my name is Marcel Uwineza. I'm a Jesuit priest, as they mentioned in the PhD program in theology, and originally from Rwanda. And I come to share with you, if you forget everything I've said, I think I survived the genocide to tell that freedom, the power of forgiveness that frees. Forgiveness leads to freedom. If you forget everything I've said, just remember that one. When you forgive, you are set free. And how has that happened? It's a very long story. Born in a very Catholic family, my mother and my father, really very pious family. We have so many prayers. I used to say, gosh, when I look back now, I said, I wonder why we didn't get, you will excuse the term, I wonder why we didn't get constipated by prayers. We had a lot of prayers back home. But that formed me. I remember just a few days prior to my first Holy Communion, my father asked me, Marcel, you are about to receive Jesus. For those of you who may not be Catholic, when you are about to receive the Holy Communion, you receive Jesus in the body and blood of Christ. So the bread and the wine that have been transformed. And so my father says, when you receive Jesus for the first time in your hands, Marcel, tell me what you are going to ask. Now, I used to be a very naughty boy, and I'm not sure that has changed. I told my father, but Dad, since you are not Jesus, why do you want to know? Of course, as you can imagine, my father was not very pleased by the answer, like any other parent would. But actually, he gave me an idea. I had really not thought about it. So that night and the following day and the day that came after, I started thinking about it. What am I going to ask? And so the day for Holy Communion came. It was the 15th of August, 1987. And the priest, I remember it was a Belgian priest, a missionary, wonderful priest, who gave me the Eucharist in my hands. And then I looked at it and I said, Jesus, make me a priest one day. Now, to be honest, I don't think I knew what I was asking. And you better be careful what you ask, you will receive. Because 26 years later, I became a priest. I wasn't sure what I was asking. But in the parish, we had wonderful priests who are really inspiring. And I said I wanted to be like one of them. Sometimes those are just superficial reasons. Later on, you grow and you find more other reasons. But now this is my family. They have inspired me to ask what I wanted. But it was a family that was struggling in a country ravaged by ethnicity. And on that very day of my first Holy Communion, my father was a businessman on average, compared to other people in our neighborhood, my family was rich, and my mother was a teacher. So they invited many people for my first Holy Communion, and they gave them a lot of drinks. So some got drunk. And I remember the headmaster of the school drank, and he said, Chrysostom was the name of my father. You see that your son, you people, you are Tutsi. Tutsi is one of the ethnic group in Rwanda. I will explain that soon. But the Tutsis in this country will not go very far. So whether he does very well or not, he will not succeed. Now my father, of course, was enraged. He was not very pleased. He says, I have invited you to my house and you come to insult me. Now I started thinking about it. Why has this headmaster spoken like this in our family? Why will I not succeed? So the following weeks, I started asking my father, Father, what have the Tutsi done that we can't succeed? And of course, at a young age, 8 years old, my father would avoid answering that question. But then the following years, I started seeing it as I was moving into grade 4 and grade 5 and 6. Rwanda was really, there was a lot of ethnic tension, and I would go back home and I asked my father and mother, why some people don't like us in school? And this was the reason. At school, the Tutsis, one of the ethnic groups, the teachers would ask the Tutsi to raise their hands in class. And we were very few. And so the teacher will say, the Tutsis in this class, raise your hands. And of course, young boys and girls who are, we raised our hands, not knowing this was actually an indoctrinating system. And the teachers later on will tell the Hutu kids in class, be aware of them. Those are our enemies. So I went back and I asked my father, I don't understand why we always have to raise our hands in class. And then later on, and now that I have studied, I got to understand why. And so to understand how I survived the genocide, I'm just going briefly to say a short history of what happened in Rwanda and why do we have those three groups and why people died during the genocide. So I have just mentioned the Tutsi. There are three groups in Rwanda, the Tutsi, the Hutus, and the Twa. And these groups have existed in Rwanda ever since. And if one were to go by definition of an ethnic group, it is difficult to define ethnicity in Rwanda. We speak the same language. You will not say that people have one, the Hutus, you wouldn't say they have one common ancestry, that's why they are Hutus. You wouldn't say that Tutsi have the same ancestry, that's why they are Tutsi. So it's actually a very complicated history, the definition of an ethnic group in Rwanda. So for those of you who are in political science, that's something you can actually explore. And so we have three groups, and the groups have existed, have been in Rwanda even before colonialism. They lived together generally in peace. Of course, like any other group, there will be disagreements, but they never reached the point of killing one another until 1994, when we really had a serious tragedy, the genocide. And that genocide, it was not just an event that happened. It was a process that was systematically planned and led to the tragedy we had. And this is where my story begins, and we'll try to cut it short. It's a long story. We leave our home. The genocide grew like a cancer. Cancer doesn't just blow up all of a sudden. It grows progressively. So the genocide began from the capital city, Kigali, and spread to other provinces. I am from the central province. And so the genocide, one will say that cancer started in Rwanda, in my region, a week after the plane was shot. And mind you, and this is the tragedy of Rwanda, Rwanda was more than 80% Catholic in 1994. And April 7, when the genocide began, it was just 3 days after Easter. We had just celebrated Easter. So many people actually fled to church, feeling that this will be a place of refuge. If anyone who comes to church, they felt they will be safe. So we left our home with my mom and my 2 brothers and my sister. We were 7 in my family, and 2 other brothers and my sister had gone to visit my aunt. Easter season in Rwanda is a holiday, so they had gone to visit my aunt, and I will come back to them later. We arrived at the Catholic Church, the local parish, at some distance, and it was 16 the evening. We hoped that now that we arrived at the parish, we will be safe. Everything at our home had been burnt. The neighbors had taken all our properties. It was a time to kill. At the parish, 6 p.m., it is raining. For anyone who has been in Rwanda, March, April, and May is a very raining season. And my mother told the parish priest, we knocked at the rectory, where the priests live. And the parish priest came out, and my mother said, Father, we are almost being killed. Can you host us for one night? And then the parish priest, Joseph, I remember him. I was going to say with beards. No offense to anyone with beards. And he said to my mother, he said, I have no place for Tutsis here. You go away. And this is not in a different language. It is in my mother tongue, in Kinyarwanda, clearly understood. And my mother reiterated, Father, I can't believe a man of God is saying this. And she insisted, if you don't have a guest room at the rectory, do you mind allowing us to get into the church hall and we'll spend one night there? It's like you ask Father Joe Constantino, the parish priest, or our parish priest, to open the church for us for one night. And then Joseph Nduwimana, it's not good to do something bad for young people. They don't forget. You see, it's more than 20 plus years, I still remember. And Joseph told the guard of the parish, the gatekeeper, to go and close the church. And then he turned towards us and he said, I have said it clearly, I have no place for Tutsis here, you go away. How will you insist? And now another reason not to doubt that genocide had been systematically planned is that there were so many youth militia, the so-called Interahamwe, if you have read in books, who had been trained to kill. A youth militia trained to do the work, as they called it in Rwanda. Killing was called work. And so they were meandering around. So we were wondering, what are we to do now that the parish priest, we thought the place of refuge was going to, the parish was going to save us, and it looks like this place might turn out to be a place of slaughter. Now, one lesson one learns in these circumstances is that we should never brand everybody in the same box. Close to the parish, there was one wonderful Hutu man, Mr. Kabera, who saw us. His house was not far from the parish. And he said, he came and ran towards my mom and he said, come, I'm going to take you somewhere. And so we followed Kabera Joseph. My master's in philosophy, the thesis I dedicated to him. And so he took us. And Kabera did it in such a way that nobody in the village would want to suspect why he took us. He had some hives. You guys, do you know what hives are? The hives? And in the hives, there were bees. And there were many. And so he had, in French you will call it clôture, he had fenced the hives. And since it was a raining season, April, a lot of grass had grown in the compound where the bees were. So he said, the best place, I think, where no one is going to suspect that you are hiding is in this place. Mind you, the church threw us out. The compound of bees welcomes us. And so Kabera, of course, the whole country is running after Tutsi. So Kabera will make sure that he will not appear close to the compound, to the beehive compound during the day. So he used to bring us food at 3 a.m. in the morning when everything is quiet, when the doers of the work have gone to sleep, the killers. So he would just come slowly, even without his wife knowing. Because in the same family, some people will be saving the Tutsi, others will be killing. So he'll bring food at 3 a.m. to my mom and to myself and my two brothers and my grandma so that we can eat. Now they started suspecting Kabera. And why? They asked Kabera, why don't you appear on the killing list? We don't see you coming to help others to kill, because they would go searching. It was like hunting. They will go to hunt for Tutsi to kill. And they said, we don't see you coming to kill like anybody. We suspect you might be hiding people in your place. And so they gave him a day when they were coming to search his house. And he was afraid. And the rule or the law in Rwanda during this period was that if they find you hiding a Tutsi, you die with them. There is a story of a sister, a religious nun, who hid close to 500 Tutsi, Sister Felicite Niyitegeka, and her brother was a soldier, and her blood brother. And he came and ordered her to chase away these refugees who had fled to the convent. And Sister Felicite responded, I know you are my brother, but I think the waters of baptism have become thicker for me. I can't chase them away. And the brother killed the sister and all the other refugees. Sister Felicite is now a heroine for the country. Just to show you that despite the many killers, there were also many people who saved others. So Kabera, back to the story, Kabera comes and tells us, they have told me that they are coming to search my house. If they find you here, you are all going to die. So my advice is that you find another place to go. Where do you go when the whole country is killing Tutsi? It's like we are in this place and they have, if you know you get out of this place, they're going to kill you. Where do you go? But at the same time, we knew if we remain in the place, we are putting him at risk. He will die. So my mother said, Kabera will go. He came at around 2 a.m. Where do we go? But we wanted him to be free. We didn't want him to die. So we took off the road. We went to the district office. And on our way to the district office, we said, since the church threw us out, let's just go to the government office. They kill us there. On our way, we met some women who had rosary beads. If you guys know what rosaries are. And this was some distance. It was almost around 5 a.m. And when they saw us, and it was easy to notice. I mean, we have been living in a beehive compound. It was smelling. And then to make matters worse, they asked for identity cards. And that's what the tragedy of Rwanda, identity cards already betrayed you. So we refused. My mother refused to give the identity card. And if you refuse, you are actually confirming you are. Why do you refuse if you are a Hutu? And then they called their husbands. They shouted, and their husbands came and seriously beat my mom almost to death. But we managed still, miraculously, when they were beating my mother, in that same village, there was one prominent Tutsi whom they had been looking for, and they had not yet found him. And I don't know. God knows why things happen. By the time they are seriously beating my mom, there were a lot of shouting that they just found that man. And he was well known in the village. So the whole place, or even those who were killing, those beating my mom, they all ran to that man. We just waited. We thought they are going to kill him and they will come to our turn. And now, again, if you have ever watched The Passion, some spectators or bystanders, sometimes they don't know what to do. So some of those who are observing the killing of this man told us, now that the whole attention is on this man, why don't you just evaporate? Probably you will survive here. They may kill you on the next station, but just leave. So we followed. And one of those Hutus who gave us the advice gave us his son to accompany us to the district office. That's how we reached the district office. He was carrying my mother. We arrived there, and again, the complexity of Rwanda, the mayor of the district was of mixed blood. Basil, his name. And now, so mixed blood, that means Tutsi and Hutu, the family, and that will be even trickier. That means on one side, he's losing some family members. He had compassion on us because he knew he has at least some Tutsi blood. We spent almost 4 days there. The militias, the Interahamwe would come occasionally and kill some people. When we arrived there, we found some 200 other people there who had gathered there. We were in the big hall of the district office, like the city hall. Now the mayor realized if we remain there, we may die of hunger, or 2, the militias will come and just throw a grenade and we die there. And he ordered 3 big buses. I will compare them to the T's. And the big buses came. They all packed us in the buses. They almost 200 people, and they took us to the cathedral, Kabwai. If anyone has ever been to Rwanda, this is central Rwanda. We arrived at the cathedral, another tragedy, but a blessing. When we arrived there, we found a barricade, a roadblock. And the militias said, anyone who has an identity card on which it is written Rwanda, we will let him get into him or her get into the cathedral. I mean, if we had identity cards, why would we be in that bus anyway? So and if we were to show, still we will be betraying ourselves. So they said, if you have nothing that proves that you are Rwandese, that means you are among those who have been fighting us, the rebels from outside. Now, miraculously, the contrast of priest and the lesson of never putting everybody in the same box. The parish priest came out of the parish, the church, Father Murigo. And he saw that the militias were almost killing us. And he paid money to save us. And we got into the church hall. See the contrast. So Joseph betrayed us, threw us out. Murigo saves us. So we get into the church hall, and we will be there. Often the militias were free at will to come and pick whoever they wanted. They went and threw many people into the rivers, in Nyabarongo, the biggest river that feeds into Lake Akagera. And stories are told of so many bodies that if you have watched the movies, Hotel Rwanda, or sometimes in April, you might have seen that bodies were floating in the rivers up to Lake Victoria. And when I went to Kenya for studies as a Jesuit, I was told that some Kenyans during the genocide in Rwanda stopped eating fish because of so many bodies floating in Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is one of the fishing ports of the region. So we are in that place, but at least we knew we are not going to die. The parish priest did all he could. And at the same time, as the days move on, the genocide, many people are being killed in the countryside. The rebels of Kagame were fighting to take control of the country. So they reached Kabwai, to cut the long story short, on the 2nd of June. That's how they got hold of us, and we survived the killers on the 2nd of June. In between, there are so many things that happened. So we are set free on the 2nd of June. But this is, we are somehow, at least we knew that we are not going to be killed, because they assured us, we have come here to save you. But there was an internal war in guerre intérieure of hatred. How on earth was I going to meet the people who destroyed everything of our family? Remember, I've just shared only my nuclear family. In Africa, we speak of extended families. So many other relatives had died. So I am only with my brother and my two brothers and my sister. My mother was ailing during that whole period, and the beating. She never got a treatment. So soon after the genocide ended, she died. So the dad and mom are gone. Now, I did mention earlier that we were 7, so there were two other brothers and a sister who had gone to visit my aunt in Kigali. When the genocide began in Kigali, they were targets, so my aunt and her husband were killed, and these were young boys and one young girl. The house girl brought them back to the village. So the killers in Kigali will first kill the older ones, and they said the young ones will die of hunger. Let's do big job. So the house girl, who was Hutu, brought them back to the village, hoping that she will find us home. But we had fled. And when she arrives and finds that there is no one at our place, she takes them to her home. And her own brother, Nkurunziza, takes the 2 boys and a young girl and killed them and threw them in a pit latrine. We discovered this after the genocide. So, and this is why I mean the interior war, when you really hate people. And then after the genocide ends, we actually, I go back to what I used to call home. And you remember, my dad was killed in 1992. When we had fled home and they had destroyed everything, the Hutu neighbors went and dug into the tomb of my father to see whether my mother might have left anything in the tomb. And they left it open. So a lot of grass had grown in there. So we are not so sure. We are so afraid to dig deep. We are not so sure that actually the bones of my father are in there. So in some way, killing my father twice. So all that fed into my anger, my hatred, and as a young growing boy, really the hatred for the Hutus and the hatred for the church. Yes, there was one priest who saved us, but how about so many others who had died in churches? So that's really the hatred where you see, where am I moving from here? Where am I going? And now my uncle, who had been in Burundi, comes back. He's a medical doctor. He takes care of us, really to the point where we started feeling as if nothing happened to mom and dad. He made us feel we were loved as his boys and daughter, the 2 of us, the 3 boys and a girl. But we were wounded. We will never go to church. After 94, I went back to church after 4 years, so in 98. And how did that happen? Another long story. I am sent to a Catholic school, and I was a loner. I meet a young man, Christian, who tells me, Marcel, I see you. I used to wear paradoxically, wear a rosary, but it was just for decoration. And so he sees me wearing a rosary, and he says, Marcel, do you ever actually say this rosary? I said, no, it's for decoration. Honest, always. And then he says, Marcel, if you have some free time, come over in the evening, we pray together. Then I said, well, I love movies. I used to love movies a lot. I would come Monday to Thursday, but Fridays and Saturday and Sunday, this is time for movies in school, in boarding school, I will not come. He said, come on those 4 days. So, but then as we began praying, that's what really changed me. Mary. She's at the very beginning of my vocation. I started asking myself, I can't be going to say this rosary, the 15 minutes rosary, it was the short one, and then when I go back to class, I can't speak to my neighbors. I have to choose one or the other. So I chose really restarting my life anew. We were living in Kigali, and close to the place where my family is now is close to a Jesuit community. And when my uncle saw that gradually I was beginning to love prayer, he said, Marcel, when you come for holidays, ask me what you want, but on one condition. When you are on holiday, I want you to go for Mass at least 3 times. He said, oh, sure, give me money. He will give me transport. I will go for Mass. Now, going to the Jesuits church, the Jesuit church which was nearby, the Jesuits who were there were wonderful. I started seeing some wonderful priests, and they were free, great preachers. And some of them were broken. And within the Jesuit center, the retreat center, there were also Jesuits who had been killed during the genocide. In some way, that resembled my own story. So many relatives who had died. But despite the brokenness of the Jesuits there, they appeared free. And I asked why. And so I met one of the Jesuits, says, one of the things that have changed me are the spiritual exercise. So he explained what that means and said, I would want to do the spiritual exercise one day. I was bright in school. I would go back and come back. And so we're getting to know the Jesuits. The desire I once had when I was young of becoming a priest returned. So when I finished high school, I got into medical school, and I had fallen in love so much with Jesuits, I quit medical school and joined the Jesuits. Long formation. But the initial part of the formation was moving. And this is where the power of forgiveness really comes in. I finished the novitiate. So this is 2002. My novice master, he knows me. I've shared my story. And he gave us some time off for holiday to go back home. And I said, if there is one place I want to visit, is a place I used to call home, even if there is nothing there. And I go there. I wanted to pray at the tombs of my parents, mom and dad, and the other 2 brothers and sisters whom we had exhumed from the pit latrine to give them a decent burial. They were there. And when I arrived there, who do I meet? Mr. Nkurunziza. You remember the guy who killed my 2 brothers and my sister? We had him jailed, and the policy in Rwanda, because of so many people in jail, Mr. Nkurunziza was released when he confessed that he killed. To set some space free in jail, so many people who confessed that they killed, they were set free, and they went and they will do communal work, like some type of South African model, Truth and Justice Commission. He had been released, but he had not been released from my heart. I hated him. I have just finished almost my novitiate, and there I am at the tombs of my parents. I have no clue that this man has been released from jail, and then there I am standing there. The tombs are like this way, and Mr. Nkurunziza, in the village, news spread very fast. I was driving, so people saw the car, and they told him that Marcel is around. He came running. So I was closing my eyes. As I opened my eyes, I saw the man. To be honest, I was confused. I was wondering, how on earth is this man here? Is he coming to do the job again to kill me? But the man had been changed more than me. So, Mr. Nkurunziza, I'm standing there and he looks at me, and this is something I will never forget for my whole life. He comes and kneels before me. I remember this scene. And he looks at me face to face, and he says, Marcel, those two brothers and your sister, I'm the one who killed them. And you know that because you had me jailed. But I am here. If you will have some space in your heart, will you forgive me? Now, in life, these are moments when you actually don't know where you are standing. You really don't know. I was confused. One, I wasn't sure whether he meant it. Two, I wasn't sure whether there are no other people surrounding who are coming to kill me. Three, I have all these ideas. Oh, I'm just finished a novitiate. Gosh, is this a temptation? But this is where I think Karana is right. The human person is a being with an upward openness. And this is where I realize we are geared towards something much higher than ourselves. By some energy or some force I don't know, I found myself, after this confusion, I found myself asking Mr. Nkurunziza to rise. And we embraced one another. And when I was able to say, Mr. Nkurunziza, I forgive you, after some time, I felt free. This was one of my freest moments in my life. So I felt as if there were chains. You see, as if you are really in chains, they were gone. I had some money. The Jesuit had given me some money for holidays. I went and bought Mr. Kabera some beer in a nearby pub. Mr. Nkurunziza some beer in a nearby pub, and we embraced one another. It was a joy. You wouldn't believe it. Somebody who killed your members of your family, and here I am, we are sharing a beer. And I think this is what really forgiveness does. It frees you probably more than the forgiven. So that set me on a course. So I went back to the Jesuits and had a wonderful time, free. It was as if the novice master said, well, God worked through the novice master to send me back home, set me free. So I continued the Jesuit formation towards priesthood. Now on the day of my ordination, I invited so many people, and one of the persons, of course, you can imagine, there was one person who had to be there, and Mr. Kabera had to be there. You remember Kabera, who hid us in a beehive compound? So I thanked everybody, the Archbishop who had ordained me and so many others. And then I said, I have one special person here who deserves a lot of gratitude. And so many people are expecting one great man. And then I said, would Mr. Kabera step forward, please? Now, if you see, Mr. Kabera has nothing impressive about him. He's a villager, very poor man. Even to come to the ordination, together with my family, we had just had to get something to have him dressed. So Kabera comes. And so I saw some people looking down, as like we often do when we are not impressed by somebody. And I said, Mr. Kabera, if I am standing here today, this was on the 4th of August, 2002, if I am standing here today ordained, you have played a big role. You remember when we were just kicked out of the church and you ran towards us and hid us in a beehive compound? Those 4 days were very critical. If we had not been hidden by you, I probably would not be a priest today. I wish Father Murigo was alive. Father Murigo was killed later, he died. So Kabera is moved by the sense of gratitude, and he goes back to his village and comes back 2 weeks later to tell me, Marcel, he comes to the provincial house where I was living, and he says, Marcel, he came with his wife. Actually, I have something I want to ask you. You know what? I am not baptized. I'm not a Christian. Then I said, in my naivety, I said, Kabera, you can't be serious. You hid me and my family. And actually, you are not even baptized. And then I said, now humanity can even transcend our Christianity. Of course, he wouldn't understand that language. Inside me, I was. And then I told him, Kabera, I have just been ordained for that. Even if it means taking you into a pool of water, I will do that. So we organized, called his parish priest, and we went and had a big celebration. So Mr. Kabera received confession, baptism, confirmation, the wedding in the same Mass, and the Eucharist in the same Mass. So more or less all the 5 sacraments in one Mass. Now the beauty of this is the sense of gratitude. That same year, I came back here. I came here to study. My provincial sent me to STM for the licentiate and the master's. Kabera had been living with his second wife. The first wife had died, and they didn't have kids. And with the second wife, they had been living together for 6 years. They didn't have kids, not because they didn't want. It was not just working out. So December 2014, I had just finished my first year of the STL at the STM. I see a strange phone call from Rwanda. I often don't pick phones I don't know, especially with the advertisements here. But I saw this was from Rwanda. I picked it, and here was Kabera. He borrowed the phone. He's very poor, he doesn't have the phone. And he was calling me to tell me, Marcel, we have very good news. We got a baby girl. 6 years after, to the second wife, and the first wife, they didn't have kid. So I was saying, you see what in some way gratitude does. Never forget those who have done the best things for you. So my story, if one were to summarize, is a story of the power of forgiveness that has set me free. The moment I met Mr. Nkurunziza and we embraced one another, that set me on a course. And my story is a story that tells you, don't brand everybody in the same box. People are different. Even among the Hutus, there were wonderful people who saved us. And my story is the realization that sometimes some of your small, I shouldn't qualify them that small, some of them may be very big hurts. You will be betrayed by some of your friends. But I hope this will show you that some of these things may be small compared to what some other people have underwent. So don't dwell on this. There is a big future ahead of you. I usually give, and to conclude, I usually give this image. I'm sure most of you drive, right? Most of you drive. You see, when you are driving, you have a big windshield before you. I was going to say devant, before you. And the windshield gives you a big expansive view ahead of you. But you also have side mirrors. You don't spend all your time looking at the side mirrors. And at the same time, the side mirrors are important. They tell you where you have come from, but you are focusing ahead where you are going. There is a proverb in Africa that says, if you don't know where you are going, at least know where you are coming from. But my view is, once you also know where you are coming from, focus on what is coming today and the future. If I had dwelt on the hurt and the injuries and the killings, I probably will not be here. I will be running into the streets. there is a positive future and something we can make out of our lives once we forgive and move on. So I thank you very much for listening to me, and God bless you.